It just got very real, and you can almost feel the temperature shifting around Dunedin as the Blue Jays' spring begins to hum with tension, possibility, and that familiar sense that something big is hovering just out of frame. This is one of those moments where a single report doesn't just add information, it changes the mood, and when one of the most plugged-in insiders around the game starts whispering names like Max Scherzer, you know the ground beneath the rotation is starting to move. Welcome back to the Blue Jays report, because today isn't just another update. It's the kind of day that quietly shapes a season before a single meaningful pitch is thrown. Spring training has officially arrived, and with it comes that intoxicating blend of optimism and anxiety, where every bullpen session feels like a prophecy and every roster decision feels heavier than it should. The Jays are already in motion, making multiple moves that on the surface might look modest, but when you step back, they begin to connect like pieces of a much larger puzzle. There's a sneaky good signing, an arbitration decision with real consequences, fresh faces arriving, and one very loud absence that has forced the front office to look outward once again. Before we dive deeper, take a moment to like the video, share it with fellow Jays fans, and subscribe to the Blue Jays report, because the next few weeks are going to be relentless. The spark for all of this comes from insider Mitch Bannon, whose report landed with the subtlety of a thunderclap. With Santander expected to miss 5 to 6 months and Shane Bieber's spring ramp-up delayed, attention has turned squarely to Toronto and how they intend to plug the widening gaps. For some players already at the complex, this could mean opportunity knocking louder than ever. For others, particularly free agents still waiting by the phone, it could mean a welcome reunion. Names like Zach Allen, Zach Little, and Lucas Giolito are floating around the market, but the easiest, and perhaps most poetic solution, is staring everyone in the face. Chris Bassett, once a pillar of this rotation and a genuine clubhouse compass, has already made his choice, signing a one-year deal worth $18.5 million with the Baltimore Orioles. That door is closed, and while Bassett himself doesn't strike fear into opposing lineups, his leadership and durability will be missed. His departure sharpens the focus on the remaining option, the one that feels both slightly absurd and strangely perfect at the same time. Max Scherzer is still out there, and suddenly, he feels less like a fantasy and more like an inevitability waiting for the right moment. There's something almost cinematic about the idea of Scherzer returning to the Toronto Blue Jays. At 41, heading into what could be one of the final chapters of a Hall of Fame career, he isn't being asked to carry a rotation on his back. Instead, he would arrive as a hybrid presence, part starter, part mentor, part walking embodiment of competitive fire. This is a man who, for better or worse, took the ball in Game 7 of the World Series last year, and that kind of experience doesn't fade quietly. It lingers in dugouts, in bullpens, in the way young pitchers watch and listen. The beauty of Scherzer's fit lies in flexibility. Toronto doesn't need him every fifth day. They need insurance, guidance, and someone who can step into the chaos when injuries inevitably strike. He can start a handful of games, soak up meaningful innings, and then slides seamlessly into a long relief or spot start role when needed. He becomes a de facto pitching coach in uniform, a sounding board for arms like Cody Ponce and the electric Trey Savage, who are navigating the pressures of big league expectations for the first real time. Reports suggest Scherzer is willing to wait, potentially into April or May, letting the market settle while teams reveal their true needs. That patience aligns neatly with Toronto's situation. As Thomas Hall pointed out, the Jays may prefer to see what they already have in camp before committing. But if Scherzer is still available once the early season realities set in, he becomes the obvious call. Like this video if you can already picture him stalking the mound in blue again, because the idea is starting to feel less hypothetical by the day. While the pitching intrigue dominates headlines, the Jays have quietly made a move that could matter more than people realize. Juan Yepez has been signed to a minor league deal and will arrive as a non-roster invitee to big league camp. At 27, he isn't a prospect lottery ticket, but is not a finished story either. In 2024, he posted a 103 WRC+ across nearly 600 plate appearances, proving he can handle major league pitching. That kind of track record, even with recent struggles, isn't nothing, especially for a club that finds itself thin around the corners. Yepez is the definition of a low-risk, quietly intriguing bet. His defense won't win awards, but he can handle first base and spot duty in the outfield, and sometimes all a player needs is the right environment and the right voice. Dave Hudgens has rebuilt swings before, and spring training has a way of resurrecting careers when expectations are low. He won't be handed anything, but if he hits, he suddenly becomes useful depth, perhaps even a surprise contributor. Stranger things have happened in Florida sunshine. Another decision that flew slightly under the radar carries significant weight. The Jays won their arbitration case against Eric Lauer, securing his return at $4.4 million instead of the $5.75 million he sought. In a vacuum, that's just a budgetary win. In context, it's strategic. With Bieber sidelined and rotation depth thinning, Lauer is now being stretched out as a starter. He may well find himself occupying that sixth-starter role, ready to step in as workloads are managed and injuries creep in. This is where the pieces begin to connect. Ross Atkins has already indicated that Lauer will be prepared to start, and that matters immensely when you consider the plan for Trey Savage. The young right-hander made his first bullpen appearance of the spring and, by all accounts, looked sharp. The organization has been clear, though, that his workload will be monitored carefully. He isn't going out there to throw 150 innings. More likely, he's capped somewhere around 140 or slightly above, which means there will be gaps to fill. Veterans like Lauer, and potentially Scherzer, become the glue that holds the rotation together. Around the diamond, more clarity is emerging. Okamoto is expected to primarily man third base while backing up first, at least initially. Schneider and Lucas are projected to split time in left field, with Berger settling into right. It isn't a configuration that screams championship dominance, but it's one the front office believes can function, especially if internal development provides a spark. Clement is penciled in at second, and Okamoto's visa situation appears resolved, with his arrival in June imminent. Momentum, at least, is building. Not all the news is rosy, and it's important to sit with that reality. Santander's injury looms large, Bon Francis is lost for the year, and Bieber's setback has forced a recalibration of expectations. Bassett joining a division rival stings, even if it doesn't terrify. These are the moments that test depth, foresight, and adaptability. They are also the moments when bold, slightly unconventional decisions can pay enormous dividends. That's why the idea of Max Scherzer keeps circling back. He represents more than innings. He represents resilience, edge, and the kind of lived experience that can steady a clubhouse when things start to wobble. For young pitchers watching him prepare, compete, and adjust, the lessons would be invaluable. For fans, it would be a statement that this front office still believes the window is open. As always, the story is still unfolding, and this is just one chapter in what promises to be a fascinating spring. Jose Berrios is set to speak with the media, offering insight into his mindset after a turbulent period, and more updates on Bieber and the pitching market are on the way. If you want to stay ahead of every twist and turn, now is the time to subscribe to the Blue Jays Report, because the next move could drop at any moment. So let me know what you think. Would you welcome Scherzer back into the fold, even in a limited role, or would you rather see the Jays trust their internal options? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video if you enjoyed the breakdown, and share it with someone who lives and breathes Blue Jays baseball. Spring training has only just begun, but already, the stakes feel unmistakably high.